Hi there. In this video, we're going to show you how the FullChinese app, a system that we have developed in the past 10 years, transforms the way you learn Chinese. The idea behind FullChinese is very simple. We studied every step you take to study the language and re-engineered the whole process to make it the most efficient possible. It feels like switching the engine in your car from an old one to a race car engine. Suddenly you feel like you are learning much faster. It also makes it much more fun. In this video, we assume you are a learner of Chinese who already knows the basics. You should know pinyin and at least a few characters. We'll make another video for complete beginners. In this video, we will focus a bit more on how to use FullChinese while you take classes, but you can also perfectly use FullChinese while learning on your own. One thing I'm not going to do here is to give you a complete tutorial of the FullChinese app. We'll have other videos for that. What I would like to do is give you an understanding on how you can use your time much more efficiently by inserting the FullChinese app in your learning process. So, you are still going to study for your classes, do your homework, and of course go to classes, but it's going to feel very different. It's going to feel way easier. It will be easier, but not magic. We'll remove all the obstacles, but you will still have to put the time in. Learning Chinese for an English native speaker is hard. If you look at a bird's eye view of the multi-year process, you get roughly 3 phases. In the very first phase, maybe the first 6 months or the first year, you learn pinyin, some characters, enough to understand what characters are about, and some pretty basic Chinese. This is an incredibly exciting year because everything you learn is new. On the right there, you have the third, advanced, proficient, or fully fluent phase, in which you understand more or less everything you read and everything you hear. You can also listen to news, regular conversations, movies, and so forth, and understand most of it. You can also say more or less whatever you want on any subject that interests you. When you are at that level of proficiency, you are not necessarily done, but you can keep progressing naturally on your own. What I am interested in discussing now is the long and hard intermediate phase. This represents at least a few years of sustained learning. In this picture here, I'm trying to show you how this long intermediate phase. On the left, there is a rocket with multiple levels. The first stage to lift you up as a beginner doesn't require the same type of work as when you continue at the second stage. The final stage is also very different. I also like this picture with different kinds of crowds at the bottom. If you compare learning Chinese with a trip, it is like a very long road. The first year, it's fun, comfortable, and you have a long road across the desert. And you see a lot of people start, and then fewer and fewer people continue until you reach an oasis. This oasis is super comfortable, but you see that not many people have reached it. Here, I'm really interested in that long road in the middle, and I want to show you that it's actually possible to complete the middle journey, to cross the desert. Moreover, it doesn't have to be all pain. It can be very rewarding and a lot of fun if you do it right. So, let's be concrete now. Let's assume that this is your weekly schedule. 4 classes, 4 times 1 hour, pretty typical. Now you add that to your own personal time. So you shoot for 2 hours of work a day. Nothing on Saturday. You should, but you don't. Anyways, 2 hours a day is a really good minimum to target. No one is known to have reached fluency with less than 2 hours a day for some sustained period of time. So let's assume you do. Now, this Sunday you open your assignment and the first thing you see is that text. I assume you are advanced intermediate in that example. It could be a simpler, shorter text like that if you haven't reached that level yet. But the principle of learning is the same. So let's go back to the longer text. You see that text on Sunday and it looks pretty big and intimidating. You say, whoa, that's going to be a bit of work. Now, if you think about what you usually do during the week, you see that this text is very important because everything revolves around it. It could also be multiple texts. The new words, the sounds, the grammar, the exercises, the culture, and the syntax are all very important. Everything really starts with the text and comes back to it usually. So your success will depend to a large extent on how much of that text you understand and how fast you can understand it. If you understand only 70% of that text, the rest of the work will be a nightmare. Now, if you look back at the text, it usually comes with a list of new words, things that were not introduced before. That's the words that are displayed in red here. Usually there's an explanation or translation for each of these words. You also get the pinyin of every word. Of course, you know the problem very well. These words, the red ones, are not going to be enough to understand the text. There are so many things that you forgot. There might be some older words that you forgot 100% or 80% or maybe even 50%. So everything here in yellow is the things that you studied before, but you are not completely sure about. All these yellow words are going to slow you down tremendously. So what we are going to do is see how to actually improve that process tremendously by going through the action of reading and analyzing the text, while also making it easy and fun, and most importantly, an efficient learning experience. There is a specific technique to read texts. It's called DER. It stands for Deep and Effortless Reading. It's deep because you should be able to access as much information as you need to understand as much as you want about the text, the sentences, the words, and the characters. It's effortless because each piece of information should be just a click away, and accessing it should require as little mental energy as possible. We very much see this kind of reading as strolling in the woods, much more than plowing through a field. Language is about building connections, and you need to be able to be gentle on yourself when you do that. And FullChinese has been refined over the years to allow you to do that. Let's open the FullChinese app on my phone. Here's the home screen. It has the list of texts I am studying. It also contains texts that I am reading just for fun. It could be text that the teacher gave me for the class or my own texts. It also contains content that I found on the web, for instance. Now, let me open the text of this week. It's about empty nesters, when children leave their parents' house and how it affects traditions. Every text has been completely pre-analyzed, automatically and then corrected by hand. So you can click on any word anywhere in the text and you will get the meaning of that word in the context of the sentence. So here, I first click on Kong Chao. I will see the pinyin and the English meaning. Now I can click on the Kong Chao card at the top and open the screen for that dictionary entry, where I can get more details. I can go a bit deeper and see the entry for the first character, so I click on the character Kong. This page gives me a lot of information, and I certainly don't want to read all of it. At this point, I just want to give you a taste of what's there. Starting at the top, I can click on the strokes button to take a quick look at the stroke order. Below the pinyin and meaning, you can see that the character is decomposed into a top and bottom component. The top component is the character 学 for cave, and the bottom one is the character 工 for work. It is critical to understand how characters are built. In order to reach any kind of fluency, you need to learn at least 2,000 characters, maybe more like 3,000. There's no way you can learn this amount of characters without understanding how they are built. Now, there are two ways to do that, one painful and long, and the other one more pleasant and faster. The painful way is you don't care about character decomposition, and you learn characters through brute force. You will still end up learning character decomposition by seeing it over and over, but guessing takes much more energy and time. The other way is to deliberately learn character decomposition. It doesn't necessarily take more time. You can either do it just as you encounter your characters in text, or you can do it in a more systematic way. We'll have another video just about that. So on this page, I click on the top part, 学 for cave, and I scroll down and I can see other characters containing the same component. I can also look up another character containing 学, for instance, 窗, which stands for window. Now, it's pretty clear you can keep going like that for a while and navigate deeper and deeper inside the dictionary. From a language learning perspective, there's nothing wrong with that. Just follow your instinct on what you want to know now. Let's go back up to the page of the character, 空. Below the decomposition, you can see a mnemonic to help you remember the character. Then you have a short explanation on why this character is using these two components. Then definitions, and below that, the character family section that gives you other characters that use similar components. The character family section is very useful because it tends to put together characters that are often confused. By seeing them on one page, you can contrast them. The section below is called Words Containing 空. It's extremely important. The problem with character definition is that characters are often extremely ambiguous. The definition and the meaning in English is often imperfect. It gives you an indication of the meaning. However, the longer the words, the less ambiguous they are. For instance, a single character word is most of the time very ambiguous, but a two-character word is much less ambiguous. Their meanings are much clearer. And finally, a three-character word or four-character expression are practically never ambiguous. So if you look at the word containing 空, it's going to give you a very good indication of the meaning of that word. For instance, if I click on the first word, 空话, empty talk, it will illustrate one meaning of 空. At the bottom of the page of 空话, you see that there's a sentences section. The app contains about 15,000 simple sentences. These sentences are very important because they represent the true unit of meaning in the language. You can click on that sentence. One important feature here is that you can flag the sentence. You will later be able to quiz yourself on it. Sentences are some of the best elements to quiz yourself on and to memorize. Actually, these types of sentences are so important that we'll do another video on that. I'm going back up to the page of the character 空. As you can see, it also has a large sentence section, which I'm going to ignore at this point. Again, the information is not meant to be read each time, only when you feel like it could help clarify something. Now, I can go back to the original word 空巢 and up again to the original text where we started. It's been a lot of work for just looking up one word, you may think, but in practice it goes very fast, and it's not time wasted at all. This is all information that your brain wanted, and because it wanted it, it will remember it more easily. Now, every word I want to retain, I will flag. Let me start with 空巢. Let me also flag 丰满 here and this expression. Every word I flag is shown in the text, and it's also added to a deck. If I click on the top right corner of the screen, where you see the 3 dots, I can see a screen with a deck that has been created, as well as a deck containing sentences that I have flagged earlier. As you remember, I flagged one sentence earlier. We will come back later to see what you can do with these decks. Let's come back to the text page first. So what word would you flag? Probably new words, but also words that you kind of remember, but only imperfectly, and you want to refresh them now. There are also words that you feel like, I should know this word since I've seen it so many times. But you may actually want to be able to use that word yourself. You want it to be part of your active vocabulary. The active vocabulary are the words that you can use when you talk as opposed to the passive vocabulary, that are words that you understand but don't feel comfortable using when you speak. Your active vocabulary will be much smaller than your passive one, maybe 10 times or even 100 times smaller. For words that you want to be part of your active vocabulary, you can add it to your special dictionary. For instance, the word 家庭, you feel like you have seen this word so many times already, but it's not yet absolutely clear. In addition to flagging it, you can long press on the star and select Add to Today's Words. Now, if I go back up to the section of Personal Dictionary, I will see that I added one word into the Today's Word section. We'll see later how we can use this section, but let's first go back to the text. What we have done so far is digging into the text, looking up words and characters we didn't understand, and we have been diving pretty deep. But in order to fully understand the text, you want to understand the whole sentence. At the bottom of the screen, you can see these 4 navigation buttons. There's a left and right navigation. But there's also a zoom out button, which will give you the meaning of the whole sentence. It is a full manual translation of the sentence. By understanding each word individually, as well as the sentence as a whole, you can get a full understanding of the text, all by yourself and relatively fast. If you want to maximize your time, the goal is to fully understand the text before you go to class. That way, class time will be reinforcement of what you have learned. It's extremely hard to learn new words during a class. Your brain is solicited by too many things. What you can do, however, is reinforce what you have learned before. For each sentence, I can also play the sound recording immediately.
什么是空巢家庭?
This has been recorded by a native speaker, so this is not automatically generated sound. It's completely natural. It's also aligned to each sentence, so I can use the navigation button for going from one sentence to the next.
巢是鸟窝，小鸟长大了，羽毛丰满了，就会展翅高飞，离开自家的鸟巢，只剩下鸟爸爸和鸟妈妈。
I can also go to another screen in which I can focus on listening. I can play one sentence at a time.
什么是空巢家庭?
Or I can play the whole text. I can also change the speed of the sound.
什么是空巢家庭? 巢是
This is a very convenient screen to do dictations for yourself. You play one sentence at a time and you attempt to write it on a piece of paper. Let's go back up to the text screen again. Now, let's assume that I've gone through the entire text, or maybe a big chunk of it. What would I do next? Immediately, I go to the deck page. Open the first deck, and you see there are different ways to quiz yourself. On the first day, you probably want to use the read quiz, a recognition quiz. Let's click on that. I can now start the quiz. You first see the word here, 空巢 again. Click on the check button. This is the answer screen. It's important because it changes the purpose of quizzes. Quizzes are not simply for testing yourself. They are also a very efficient way to study again. For instance, I can click on the text button and go back to the text, directly where the word was mentioned. From there, I can again look up information. Let me come back up to the answer screen. There, I could also click on the dictionary button. Access the dictionary entry, click on one character again, go back to the quiz answer. I won't go through the whole process in this video, so let me come back up. To conclude, I want to just show you a brief view of some features. So, I'm going to the More screen. That screen is tracking my activity. It is helpful motivation, as you know. Sentences will list all the sentences I have flagged. I can quiz myself on those, read them aloud, consult them again, of course. There is an environment around tones, so tones are absolutely critical. But usually there is no way to practice them in sequence. So here you can select a tone, like tone 2, then sequence 2-2. Then let's say 2-2-3. And I can play the sequence here and maybe just go to sample text, which give me the sample sounds for this sound.
我在学游泳，学游泳，厨房里，柠檬水，葡萄酒。
Let's go back up here and show you briefly something else. There is an entire environment around characters, so we break them down in different ways. You can access them through words, text, dictionaries, flashcards, and also directly by level, HSK 1 through 6. HSK is a standard way to measure levels of Chinese in mainland China. If I click on HSK 2, I can filter them by tones, which makes them easier to memorize, and then you can consult them right here. So this is going to be it for this presentation. I don't want to dig into every single feature. Hopefully it gives you an overview of the most critical part, which is how to absorb text much more efficiently, much deeper, but also with less effort. Thank you very much.